Becoming Awesome with Peter D. Expand your consciousness. Hi, I'm Peter D. Welcome to Becoming Awesome. Have you heard the saying that it was so good, I think I'm going to do that again? Well, I want to introduce Dani Katz. This will be our second interview, and I think you're in for a real treat with just the energy and insight that Dani has to offer. Now, Dani was a writer in LA. She still writes, but she was a writer for many popular journals that you know about: LA Weekly, Los Angeles Times, Teen Vogue, and the Santa Fe Reporter right here. She's ghostwritten books. She's been a screenwriter, film writer, just amazing work. I'm interested in her most recent book, Word Up, Little Language Hacks for Big Change. I read that book and I was just like, oh my God, what beautiful insight. I invited Dani to come on the podcast to help you with wording up. Dani Katz.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here.
Great. So just a minute or two, tell me about yourself.
I'm a word nerd.
Word nerd. Just say that. Word nerd.
I'm a word nerd, and I'm a depth diver. So as a writer, I got really sucked into the frequencies of words and all the different ways that they create our reality, and I lucked out and turned it into a path for myself and a way to support others in empowering themselves and activating themselves and living their best, most expansive, abundant, fun lives possible.
Very cool. So sum up for you would in the elevator speech, what is this book, Word Up?
So Word Up is a book about quantum languaging, and quantum languaging is the name that I gave for the realm that I work in, which is the energetic frequencies of words, the various sort of coding that's hidden in words, and how language functions to create our reality. So this book is an overview, like a really basic sort of kindergarten overview of what quantum languaging is, how words create our reality, and languaging hacks for some really basic habitual disempowering languaging patterns that I hear all of us speaking, and just little tiny super simple adjustments to upgrade our languaging, to upgrade our lives.
So I have to admit, I'm going to make a confession here publicly in front of everybody. I'm a rhetorician. I actually have degrees in rhetoric. I actually have a PhD in speech communication, master's in argument and rhetoric. This is the why I love this stuff. I was attracted to it because I thought words were magic. I mean, when I was a little kid, people on TV would cast spells by saying words.
Absolutely.
And now I'm hearing you talk about the frequency of a word and how that moves into the consciousness and then how that moves into the reality. So can you just talk a little bit about the power of language to create your life?
Okay. You said talk a little bit.
No, talk a lot.
It's
talk
so
a lot.
Massive. Everything in our known reality in this dimension is here because of words. We think through words. Language creates how we process information. Syntax creates how we take in information. And the words that we put out, they program our own subconscious minds, the subconscious minds of the people that we're speaking to, and the collective field at large. So if we're talking about the collective field or the subconscious mind, neither of these entities are ever asleep on the job. So it's not like I say, I'm a fat loser and my subconscious mind was taking a nap and didn't hear that, right? Anything we say, our words function as directions for our subconscious mind, for the collective field, that will then configure reality according to the directions that we're giving it. So it's really important that we're attuned to every word such that we're creating the reality that we want, because we are reality creators. This collective reality is a function of how we are collectively choosing to create it. So once we know that, and we know how the words are coded on these subtle levels, then we do have this magic tool to create reality and ourselves and our lives as we choose.
So I never have gotten to do this because it's very rare that I'm with somebody who has the grasp of the power of language and also has the consciousness to understand creation, to put those two together. So I remember way back in college being fascinated by the Whorf-Sapir hypothesis.
I don't know what this is.
It just basically says that you have to have a word for it or it's not a thing. So for instance, Eskimos will have 27 light words for snow, we'll have 2 or 3, so you can tell the value in their life, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, and then I have people tell me that if you don't have words, you almost can't have a thing. If you don't have a word for it, you can't imagine it. So it's almost like the wording creates the reality as opposed to the other way around.
100%.
Okay, so knowing all that, let's really geek out on it. Can you tell me some of the language hacks you've learned and that you share in your book, some of the little things that can just set people on a different direction?
So in speaking directly to what you were just speaking about, one of my biggest hacks is don't talk about what you don't like. Don't talk about what you don't want to create. Don't talk about what you don't want to see more of. Don't go perpetuating the things that aren't working for you. I call that negative space speak.
No. I'm going to really just say it. Censors be damned. You called it in your book, you called it disasterbation.
Oh yes, disasterbation. Yes, disasterbation is when we're giving voice to worst case scenarios, which we're immersed in right now. So yes, no disasтерbating would be a big one. I think one of my favorite hacks to give people is to notice where we're giving our power away to I have to or I can't, and changing both of those to I choose, and how that tiny subtle change gives us so much more agency and authority over our lives and so much more confidence. So, I believe every hack in my book is really crucial, and especially these days with what's going on, globally, that's my favorite, is to change our have-tos and our can'ts to choose, and so that we're always in choice and really owning our authority.
Sweet. So let's get real. Let's get down to the personal level. Can you give me any examples of you or someone you know who changed the words in their life and then had a life experience change because of it?
Totally. So I, as you and I were talking about earlier, I'm prone to being a loner and spending a lot of time by myself. And I was in a phase several years ago where I felt really alone and like no one cared about me. And I started to notice this repeating thought, I don't care. So someone would cut me off in traffic and I would watch myself get annoyed, and then I would say, oh, I don't care. Or, I wouldn't be invited to something that I heard about and I would say, I don't care. And I realized every time I say I don't care, I'm seeding my reality with the lack of care. And so the switch that I made, and to this day, I still make this correction in my mind, when I have the thought I don't care, I change it to I care and I'm cared for. And as soon as
I care and I'm cared for.
And as soon as I made that shift, I noticed all the friends that I had, I was invited to more things, and there was more closeness and there was more engagement. And because that, we all have our weak spots. We all have those. And for me, that is a place where I can over isolate. So just that shift to I care and I am cared for brought the experience of care into my life in a really obvious way.
Very, very cool. So it's kind of interesting to me to think about it, because I remember times in my life where it's just, as a child, feeling, what's the song? Nobody loves me, everybody hates me, think I'll eat a worm.
Yes, yes.
Right? And I realized that that's a corrosive thread that was in my being. So it's really refreshing to hear you say, okay, I'm cared and I care for, and just by saying it internally, you started to manifest it externally.
Absolutely.
Sweet.
Absolutely. And another one that has been such a game changer for me is I don't have time. Noticing, like, feeling rushed all the time, and how when I would say I don't have time, then I was victimizing myself to a perceived lack of time versus, because we all have the exact same amount of time, which is now. We all have this present moment. It's a matter of how am I choosing to expend my energy. So when I let go of I don't have time and replace it to I'm choosing to do this with my time, or I'm choosing to do this with my time, I no longer felt disempowered to a lack of time and had that, that kind of mortality monster chasing me, always kind of over my shoulder. And it helped me feel more empowered about how I was choosing to organize my life.
Very sweet. It's very sweet. So can we go down the rabbit hole? Can we take a little woo-woo break?
Always.
All right. Just a reminder for everybody listening out there, we're in Santa Fe, New Mexico. This is how we roll, okay? If you don't know your horoscope, you got nothing to talk about at the grocery store, okay?
If you don't know your moon and rising.
Yes, right.
You can't be here.
Right. Okay, so when I started experiencing awakening around 2012, and the people I was close to were experiencing awakening, we started to notice that time got slippery. That we would have documented instances, we would leave the house late and we would arrive at our place early.
Yes.
Okay. Have you experienced anything like that?
I have, and it feels like the veil's getting thinner, the rules guiding our reality are a little bit more nebulous, and it does feel like a game. Terence McKenna had talked about language, that if you know the words that the world is made of, you can make of it whatever you want. And so I've been playing with time quite a bit, where I will leave and I'll notice like my heart races and my nervous system gets weird. And then I decide I'm right on time. I'm always in divine timing, and I will arrive early, or, these weird time slips. And I feel like more of us are starting to realize this game is not what we think.
Right.
It's way more magical. It's way more complex. It's way more multidimensional. And I feel like the more fun we have with it, and the more that we can relax into this co-creative way of engaging reality, then it becomes kinder, weirder, more magical. It feels like a very different game right now.
So let's bring this back to words. So I'm finding that when I speak those words, that, I've got plenty of time.
Yes.
Or, I think the biggest joke I use right now is when it's time to do the dishes, right? And I'm lying on the sofa, just go, and I'm like telling my wife, I'm like, yep, I'm already halfway to the kitchen.
I love
And
that.
a couple of minutes later, I'll say, yep, the dishes are mostly done now. And then
love
before I know it, I'm in the kitchen doing dishes. I'm like, what? How did that happen? So it's just like wording things, can create not motivation for me, but I'm starting to hear from you and other people that just how we word things can shape what's going on around us.
Absolutely. So I feel like it goes back to time, just as far as what you were talking about with how you're doing the dishes and our misunderstanding of time, where we've been taught that we need to see something happen in 3D, and only then are we allowed to put words to it that it has happened.
Right, that's not real.
Right. And the reality is that time isn't linear. Time is omnidirectional and happening on all dimensions at once. There is no sort of like linear past, present, future. So I've found, especially with the process of writing, because writing can be very labor intensive and it does take time. Regardless of the languaging I put around it, writing takes time. And so as a writer, I'll say, this book is writing itself, or I'm having so much fun writing this, and just in languaging what I'm intending, then I have more fuel to put in the action. Then, and it's being brave enough to state it first and trusting that our meat suits will follow.
Sweet. So we're talking about quantum languaging because we're moving into the quantum realm. Your book, Word Up, fabulous book. Word Up helps people understand that there's a realm they can access. So can you talk about how life changes? You gave them some examples already, but can you give an overall picture? I noticed that, I guess the thing I'm chasing most is causeless joy. which is just being in the field without expectation, and because
Totally.
I'm in it and then I feel it. Can you talk anything about the bigger spiritual picture, the biggest life picture of words?
This is a great question. So to people who are in this conversation, I call quantum languaging an evolutionary languaging paradigm because it really does accelerate our evolution. So shifting my language in the ways that I have through the hacks that I share in my book has helped me be more adept at multidimensionality. And I feel like regardless of our level of consciousness right now, we are being invited to avail ourselves to a multidimensional reality. And it is becoming more complex. And, I'm sure we've had the experience of, like healing some massive wound, and then all of a sudden there are 12 more that present themselves, right? It becomes more complex and more infinite. So this language has really helped me master or amplify my mastery of multidimensionality and start to have a real practical understanding of my role as a creator of my reality. And I feel less at the whim of life and more in charge. And like I have more agency in deciding how things are gonna go. And it's definitely amplified my confidence and my self-esteem because I've tweaked my languaging such that I'm attuning myself to the frequency of empowerment through my words. And that allows me to embody that. And that also allows me to model that for other people and, to pull other people into that frequency.
I remember I used to walk up to somebody and say, "Oh, how's life treating you?" Which is, of course, the whole victimization of life, right?
Totally.
Life is out there; it does things to you, right?
Right.
You either have the good fortune of the gods or not. So, what I'm hearing you say is, you can sit there and this is the money line for me. This is the thing is where you say, "I'm a creator."
Yes.
I'm creating.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's just really powerful.
Super powerful.
Okay, so any tips to somebody who's like new to expanding their consciousness and becoming awesome? Any tips you want to give on where to start other than get the book, word up?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, other than that, any tips on how to move on the process?
So I like to invite people to start to notice what thoughts are looping through your mind, and how are you thinking about yourself throughout the day? Because it is important in how we're speaking to other people. It's all equally as important. And I think a great place to start is start to notice what destructive or unflattering thoughts are we looping about ourselves. And anytime you notice one, write it down. And then write the upgrade. So if it's, I'm broke, I can't afford it. And that is a sentence I'm encouraging you to never, ever, ever say.
Right. I'm even trying to get past when I have the money, I will. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
So what are some upgrades?
So the upgrade would be money comes to me easily. Or, something I use instead of I can't afford it is I'm not feeling guided to invest my money this way, or this isn't the wisest use of my abundance. The key is we don't want to articulate any lack. We don't want to put lack into the field. It's how we're choosing to utilize our abundance.
I want to tell a little story. One of my first teachers on this path, he was telling me that he was eating lunch with a guy who had just lost millions overnight, totally destitute, broke, entire fortune gone away. And they were talking about it. And he goes, he hears the story of what happened to his friend, and he says to his friend, "Oh, I'm sorry." And he goes, "Oh, don't be sorry. I'm a millionaire. I'm gonna have millions. I just had this loss here, but I'm gonna have millions. I just need you to pay for lunch today."
I love that. That's great. Yeah, victimization is a big thing that my work transmutes because it does seem to be this really weird trend in our culture where people seem to be vying to be the biggest victim. And
Oh, I used to get significance that way. I used to go to AA meetings, and I thought I didn't belong because my story wasn't wretched enough.
Exactly. We fight to be the most wretched. And, I've had my own version, and then what I've learned is that there's really no value in being the biggest victim. Like, okay, you might get pity, but there's nothing quantifiably, like, life-bettering about someone else's pity. It's just an excuse to be small. So another thing I would say is look at where we're making ourselves small, and look at where we're making excuses, and look at where we're victimizing ourselves, and rewrite, these stories for the more empowering. The way that people will perceive us, the way we present ourselves. So notice the stories that you're telling about yourself, and how you're writing your story when you're presenting yourself to other people, as well as what you're telling yourself throughout the day, and then take the time to rewrite these stories for the better. And repetition is key, because the subconscious mind is responsible for 95% of our reality, and the subconscious mind is programmed by language and repetition. So these disempowering thoughts that we all have, that's part of the human game. We've heard them on these repetitive loops thousands and thousands of times. So anytime I catch myself either speaking or thinking something that's disempowering myself, it's important that we cut it. Don't finish the thought. Clear, cancel, delete, and speak the upgrade. I care and I am cared for. I always have more than enough money. People love me. I am a confident, bright, articulate ray of sunshine. Whatever it is, when we catch the disempowering thought, I really admire Krishnamurti for this reason. I've watched tons of his videos, and in many videos, he would stop himself mid-sentence when he heard himself. Very often for him, it was identifying with a personal pronoun, and he would correct his languaging. And that gave me a lot of confidence, because I put him on, I have so much respect for him, of like, wow, here's a spiritual teacher who I love, and he's humble enough to stop himself mid-sentence and rewrite his languaging. So, if we're, you're having a conversation with someone and you catch yourself saying something that is disempowering, be bold and say clear, cancel, delete, and rewrite it for the more empowering, because that helps create new neural networks in the brain that will ultimately be the reason why reality shifts.
As I moved into my awakening, the guides who helped me talked a lot about make friends with your mind. Because your mind's going to be repetitive, it's going to be destructive. But as you awaken and become an observer of it, then you're going to start to see your mind like your grandmother sitting in the corner of the room. When you walk in, it tells you to get a haircut, it tells you who are you dating, all that stuff. And you go, oh, Grams, I love you, that's nice, but I'm going to go over here to this other place.
Exactly. It's because we don't want to be at odds with it, right? We don't want to be at odds with these outdated thought forms or the monkey mind. We just want to be in right relationship with it.
Great. So this is an amazing time to be alive.
Absolutely.
We've got all kinds of craziness. You don't need me to explain what that is going on out there. We've got a lot of stuff happening. I tell my wife when this first started that this is it. This is it. For decades I've read epic science fiction books. I've read epic fantasy books. Now I'm the character. I'm the main character in an international plot of intrigue and power domination and COVID or surveillance and everything that may even have ETs, that may even have satellites. And who knows where it's at. I mean, this is the most amazing story ever. I'm going to write my own hero's journey as my own character in the book. So I'm going to give you that opportunity. This is the Book of Dani, the most amazing science fiction fantasy story ever written. The transition of a planet. What story are you going to write?
Wow! The story that I'm writing is that this is the moment that we have been waiting for, and this is the moment we incarnated for. I think, the way that I see it, it's thousands and thousands of lifetime in preparation and training for this lifetime and for this moment and for this beautiful ascension of humanity and this unification and this harmonizing and this shift into a different level of knowingness and relatedness. And I see this as really beautiful, and my perspective is love has already won, and we're just playing it out on 3D where it's a little bit slower and it's a little bit messier.
One of my favorite science fiction writers would say, hey, it's no big deal to expose the ending. The story that keeps you interested is how you got there.
Exactly. And so I feel like this is beautiful, and I feel like we're all worthy of praise and every honor there is for being brave enough to incarnate right now, to be here right now. And I don't know what it looks like. I know that it's wonderful, it's better, it's an upgrade, it's a unification. I know there's so much novelty coming in right now. Like there's what's happening in 3D, and then we look to the cosmos and the stars and all the innovation that, you know, the astrology is pointing to, and it's an exciting time. So I'm focused on what are we creating, who are the fun 5D people that I get to co-create this with, and how wonderful can we make it?
Fantastic. That's the book I want to read. But first, Word Up. I bought it on Amazon. You can get it in audio. You can get it on Kindle, you know, or e-readers, or you can get the paperback. Please remember, this is a podcast kind of thing. Like, share, follow, and subscribe. Especially the share part. We want to get more and more people who know that there can be awesomeness in our lives, and we want to get the message out, and that means you got to help the computer algorithm. So share, like, subscribe, follow. Thanks for doing that. Tell me how people can get in touch with you, Dani.
They can find me. quantumlanguaging.com is all my quantum languaging stuff, and from there you can click through to my YouTube channel, which has tons of free videos, languaging hacks, and consciousness upgrades, and my book and articles and consulting and coaching and all of that.
Just fun. Okay, so this is it. This is last words. What do you got?
Vibe high, stay up. Remember that you are omniscopic amazingness, and every single thing happening in this world is happening for you.
Right. That was one of the funnest things I ever came across. Will Bresney's astrology, where he, what's the opposite of where people conspire against you? They're conspiring for you.
For you.
Right.
Yeah. Just that, if that's the only thing that you get out of this, that simple mindset that every single thing that happens is happening for your benefit, it's a game changer. It's the greatest game changer.
Yeah, very, very cool. All right. Many blessings with you. Thank you for tuning in. Dani Katz. Stay blessed.